Started to do. I mean, he was
Visibly nervous.
but his brother said he fine. He can stand here and do it.
Okay.
So you can write. He can just step right.
Yeah. So if we're live.
You're lying, but I just met him. So he's ready to go. He said he can do it.
Hey, Randy, how are you? We're not quite ready yet. We're not quite ready to start yet. Just for you, Trish. It's just for you. Good afternoon. Welcome to Nicholas LaGrange. We are so glad to have you with us today. It's great to be here. It's kind of the start of summer, so you don't know what kind of crowd we're going to have. There's vacations and everything like that. So I appreciate you being here. Appreciate you making Rotary a priority. A couple of congratulations. First of all, our local leaders who won elections last week. I know we have Jim, the new mayor, and we have Morris Jones. And if there are any others, I'm leaving out. Just congratulations and thanks for your willingness to serve in that capacity in our community. Congratulations also to all the families who have children and grandchildren who graduate high school, graduate college. That's a big deal, as well as the teachers who've helped to mold and support them. So just thank you for all you do. I am particularly excited about our program today, more than a little afraid, to be honest with you, but I think we know who closes out the meeting today, so we know who has the microphone last, so just keep that in mind. Proud to have my family members, have several of them with us today. You all have noticed they've never come to see me, but they're coming to see Uncle Mike, so really, really like that. But we're going to do an invocation, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then we'll jump into our comments and programs. So, John Harrell, if you would, please lead us in the invocation.
God, we turn to you as Rotarians, acknowledging our promise and creed of service above self. And for each of us to seek on a daily basis opportunities to fully invite service to others and place such service above our individual needs and wants. God, may we each act in such a manner. May our actions fully support our spoken creed of service above self. Monday, we pause to pay tribute to our dearly departed. We honor the memory of the valued servicemen and women who made the supreme sacrifice so that we may live in a country that is free. May they rest in peace. Keep their families in good graces. Give them peace and comfort. We also remember those currently serving in the armed forces. Protect and defend them. Grant that they continue to serve you and our country with honor and dignity. We also ask that you watch over the veterans of our country. Comfort those who are suffering physically, emotionally, and mental illness. Relieve their suffering and bring them back to full health. Lord, we thank you for our many blessings. You've been most generous. We ask that you encourage each of us to place service above self through our actions. We are grateful for the meal before us and for the hands that prepared. Amen.
Thank you, John. Please join me in the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. So we do have a number of guests today. We're going to ask Kelsey if she'll come up and introduce them to you.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is my pleasure to introduce our guests. Please stand when your name is called and remain standing until all names have been introduced. Well, I will first begin with the guests of Trip Penn, since there are quite a few of you out here. So first we have Charles Ball, Joan Caldwell, Caleb, Lena Penn, Megan Penn, Miller Penn, and those are the guests of Trip Penn. So welcome. And next we have Bob Johnson, guest of Glenn Clements, Ford McLean, guest of Jeff Brown, Jacqueline Davis, guest of Susan Ferguson, Jerry Winez, guest of Ted Beeson, Liba Bowling, guest of Bill Bowling, and lastly we have Laurentez Davenport, guest of Sandy Lee. So welcome, everyone.
Thank you, Kelsey. Hasn't Kelsey done a great job this year? You're the best. So all of our guests, we'd love to have you back. Come back anytime. We have great programs out here. We have good fellowship. If you're interested in joining Rotary, please let me know. We'd love to have you as a prospective member. We have some things to celebrate. I want to bring those up real quickly. So we have a couple of birthdays. Tyler Baker, not only did he have a birthday on May 26th, they had a baby this week, he and Allison did. So big congratulations to them. Morris Jones' birthday is on May 30th. And then Sandy Lee, you got a birthday coming up, Sandy, June 2nd. So we don't have any club member anniversaries, but we do have a couple of wedding anniversaries. I want to congratulate Beth Hudson and Chase on 13 years of marriage. Where's Karis? Karis, 45 years of marriage to Mark. Isn't that fantastic? Congratulations. And then it's not an anniversary, but it's an announcement. Just want to remind everybody that our own members, Trey Long and Holly Winter, are getting married this week. So be thinking about them. Big congratulations to them. A couple of announcements on behalf of the club. First of all, sincere thank you to Connie for covering last week. Gave me a much needed family vacation, and we thoroughly enjoyed it. As you could tell, you are in excellent hands next year. So looking forward to out with the old, in with the new. Congratulations. So I will tell you that Connie still needs program ideas. So we have a good crowd today. If everybody could give one good program idea to Connie and Steve, that's going to make for an excellent year next year. So please do that. I want to remind you, our annual banquet is coming up on June 13th. If you haven't RSVP'd to Cheryl Magby, please do that. We want everybody there. It's going to be a great time. We're going to celebrate. The attire is business casual, just as a reminder. So we have a few minutes for Happy Dollars. What are you happy about? What is there to celebrate in the community today or in the lives of your family?
There's a blood drive on Wednesday, May 29th.
As we speak.
You can register for it here, or you can drive from this Rotary meeting to Coleman Community Center at 701 Lincoln Street and get blood. It is needed. Every day. Also the donor card. We have a 5K coming up in September. If we want to lead, we need to give. Right.
I pretty much $100 for him, and I got a few other dollars, so $5 there. One, I'm not married, as you know, priests cannot get married, but I am celebrating on June 4th, my 30th anniversary for the ministry of the Catholic Church. That's a priest.
Congratulations.
So, things, I'm doing the wedding for two Rotarians, Holly Winter and Trey Long, and they're to be wedded on Friday. The rehearsal's on my off day, but I have to do both Zach. So that's why it's a priest, you never get a vacation or an off day. There's no vocation. There's no vacation for one's vocation. But I ask you to keep Holly and Trey in your prayers as they begin their journey together. Her sister is a Methodist minister, Heather, so we'll be kind of doing an ecumenical wedding at the Catholic Church, which will be good. I can't wait. So
That's
we're
fantastic.
excited for that, because Holly is very faithful in her tradition as well as Trey. So we pray for both of their wedding and their families. Then I want us to remember that life is fragile. I had the difficulty of doing the funeral for one of our young people that was supposed to graduate at Troup County High School, Mary Joy Mosley, and she was laid to rest on Thursday. So I asked Father Dali Balaswamy, he could not officiate the funeral because his church only hosts about 50 people. We had over 647 people attend her funeral. And that life is fragile. That's something to just remind us. No matter how young we are, it's terrible, or how older we become. Life is indeed fragile. Take it as a blessing every day. Please pray for the Mosman family and the Robinson family over from Gwinnett, but I want to honor her today as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, any other announcements on behalf of the group? Anything for the benefit of the community? Or if not, it is a tremendous honor for me to introduce you all to my wife's favorite brother-in-law, my children's favorite uncle, and my parents' favorite child. So listen, I get it, I understand. So one son has defended our country for his entire adult life and has led hundreds and hundreds of our country's finest men and women into really significant harm's way. The other son, he can write a really clever email. He leads a good staff meeting. So one son survived having his Humvee blown up by an IED bomb in Iraq. Literally exploded the whole car and they walked out of it. Well, the other son, he pulled a rib cage muscle last year because he had a bad cough. He had a what's called a coughing injury. I'm not sure. So one son has nearly 3 decades of faithful service as a decorated GI. Well, the other son, he has more than 3 decades of GI issues. That's actually true. So, Colonel Michael S. Penn has been serving as the military deputy, USA SOC Force Modernization Center since August 2022. Prior to this assignment, he served as commander of 1st Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group at Panzerkaserne, is that close? Panzerkaserne in Stuttgart, Germany. Before that, he was the deputy director of operations for Special Operations Command Africa, headquartered at Kelly Barracks in Stuttgart, Germany. A native of Donaldsonville, Georgia. Donaldsonville in the house? Anybody? Anybody know where Donaldsonville is? There we go. Okay. Colonel Penn enlisted in the U.S. Army, started as a legal specialist in 1996, which is 27 years ago, and where he served in the 82nd Airborne Division and 3rd Special Forces Group Airborne. He commissioned as an infantry officer through the Army Officer Candidate School in 2001. In the infantry, he served as an anti-armor platoon leader and rifle platoon leader in the 3rd Battalion, 502nd Parachute Infantry Regiment, 101st Airborne, where he deployed to Operation Iraqi Freedom from 2003 to 2004. He also served as the executive officer for headquarters and headquarters company 2nd Brigade, 101st Airborne Division. Following the Special Forces qualification course, that is a question to ask him about the Q course. Colonel Penn served as the commander of Special Forces Operation Detachment Alpha 3316 in A Company 3rd Battalion 3rd Special Forces Group, where he deployed to multiple training missions in Pakistan in 2008 and Operation Enduring Freedom, Afghanistan in 2008 and 2010. You'll notice a lot of deployments. This was not peacetime service. Following his detachment command, Colonel Penn served as the Group Assistant Operations Officer from 2001 to 2011. After leaving Special Forces Group, Colonel Penn served in the U.S. Army Special Activities Management Unit out of Washington, D.C., where he deployed in a variety of support missions in Afghanistan, Yemen, and Jordan between 2011 and 2014. Penn returned to the 3rd Special Forces Group to serve as commander of the Technical Support Company, the 4th Battalion Operations Officer, and the Group Future Plans Officer from 2015 to 2018. Colonel Penn holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of Georgia. Come on, Rex. And has a Master of Military Studies degree from the Marine Corps University. He's a graduate of the Infantry Officer Basic Course, the Infantry Captain's Career Course, and the Marine Corps Command and Staff College. His awards and decorations include the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Defense Meritorious Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, Meritorious Service Medal with 3 Oak Leaf Clusters, Joint Commendation Medal, Joint Achievement Medal, Special Forces Tab, Combat Infantry Badge, Military Freefall Parachutist Badge, and Senior Parachutist Badge, and Air Assault Badge. He's married to Amira Penn. His 2 daughters are here. Michaela, who's pending graduate school in Europe this fall, and Lena. Where's Lena? Raise your hand, sweetie. Beautiful girls and absolutely brilliant kids. Glad to have you with us. So there are many things I could say about Michael, but the one thing is clear. This dude has range. At different points in his life, he's been a really good break dancer, a great skateboarder, lead singer of a rock band, a rapper, a Green Beret, and a cat lover, a three-wheeler riding, squirrel hunting redneck, a vocal champion for civil rights and people of color, and then most recently a military leader. Above all, he's a good dad and a great brother. And again, it is a great privilege for me to introduce Colonel Michael Penn. So, I really appreciate that introduction. I still do that cough and move or pull a rib every once in a while. And it is crippling. Actually, I was homesick one day and I leaned over and I did it, and then I had to call into work and go, hey, I can't come in today because I just coughed myself into not being able to move. So thank you very much for that. If you can't tell from that intro, definitely I have ADD. I'll try to keep that in order here, as many do in our community. In Special Forces, that's something that we're all kind of drawn to that gets the front of our brain moving. So bear with me if that flares up and I get off track and we lose time. I'll do my best to keep us on time and on target. I'd also like to say thank you for that prayer. That was wonderful. Not just the part about the military, but the part about service and making better communities. So thank you for that. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I appreciate the time to come here and share my story with you, or at least part of my story with you. I'm Mike Penn, obviously Tripp's brother. Don't really have any business being here other than that fact. I went back through your Facebook feed and I saw the previous people that you had here. You've had 2 university presidents, you've had a Supreme Court justice from the state of Georgia, and you've had the former governor of Georgia here. And here I am, just a random Green Beret from North Carolina. I would like to acknowledge another Green Beret that's in the room with us. So Mr. Charlie Ball is here with us. I've just met him, but he is the father of my mom's neighbor. So welcome, Charlie. Anybody else in the room that I've missed that may be from our community? I just didn't know about it prior to this. All right. So hopefully I can do us some justice here and kind of tell part of our story. So this is also the first time I've ever given an unofficial talk like this, which explains why I'm not in uniform. So Charlie, case of beer, as is the tradition for first time you do anything. But I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of background about myself and then how I ended up in the Army. And then we'll jump into what it's like to be a Green Beret, which is essentially what Tripp asked me to talk about here. So I was born in Newton, grew up in Donaldsonville, as you said, right down there in Seminole County. My senior year of high school and my 18th birthday happened to align with the line in the sand of Desert Storm. Like, this is the line in the sand. That was my birthday. And at the time, I thought I wanted to be a SEAL. So I took that long bus ride from Donaldsonville to Atlanta to the Military Interest Processing Station. And I found out I'm severely colorblind. I can't see. I was not qualified. And they sent me back home on that bus. And the SEALs that I've worked with in the past love this story. But to me, it was where I needed to be at that time. And it worked out that way. I think I've probably been watching that Charlie Sheen movie a little too much. So I wasn't ready to do that anyway. But at that point in my life, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do next. So I spent that summer and the following fall working for a cousin of mine who ran a vegetable farm down in Seminole County, working very closely with Mexicans and Guatemalans, picking vegetables. My Spanish was excellent, and I really was fascinated by their culture. I would go and meet them early in the morning. We'd start making burritos, and we would socialize and begin our day. And it was just unbelievable how rich their culture was, how close they were, and I was enthralled by it. So this right here is foreshadowing, people. I didn't think about it at the time, didn't really understand what it meant to me then, but it's pretty clear now where I was headed. But I eventually made the decision to go to the University of Georgia because what else am I going to do? I'm not going to stay here and pick vegetables the rest of my life. Everybody else in my family is going to UGA right now, so I'll do that too, which is a horrible reason to go to school, right? I was a terrible student. And I was running out of money and I was working too hard trying to stay in school with crappy grades. And I decided that I needed a change in my life. So, see if I can get this. There we go. All right. So in 1996, I walked into an Army recruiter's office in Athens, Georgia, and I enlisted in the Army. My mom there told me it's the worst mistake of your life.
All right. So sometimes I struggle with structure and authority, and I think she thought I might get myself in trouble. But I told her I needed some discipline in my life, and away I went. I went to basic training at Fort Jackson, South Carolina, and I was enlisted as a paralegal because I was colorblind. Right, that colorblind thing again. They offered me 2 jobs: chaplain assistant and paralegal. I chose paralegal, and I went to the Army as a private first class. And in that first assignment, I went to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. And while I was there, I volunteered for airborne status because by then I'd read an Army regulation that said, if you can see red and green, you can go to airborne school and do many other jobs in the Army. So I went airborne and I was in the 82nd. But by some stroke of luck that happened right there, a guy called me and he asked me if I wanted to be in 3rd Special Forces Group. And of course I did. So I went there, and that's where I fell in love with the Green Berets. Some of the most amazing people I've ever met in my life. Such a diverse variety of people with different thoughts and how they approach life. And it was just fascinating with me. They were all like heroes come to life for me as a young kid, and I wanted to be like them. So I knew I wanted to be special forces, but I wasn't sure, like, do I want to do this as enlisted, as an officer, both? I knew I eventually wanted to be an officer. I didn't like officers particularly, but the only way you can make a difference is to go jump in, right? And start work. So I made the decision to go to officer candidate school, like Tripp said. I went to Fort Benning, now Fort Moore, close to here, became an infantry officer. If you look up there, that picture of my mom on the bottom right, that's in New York City. Apologize. I may sound like I'm getting emotional, but I had major sinus and ear surgery last Monday, so I'm still a little off, or I could just be getting emotional. Some of this stuff really hits me. So this is out of sequence, but this is from a trip that we took her on, Tripp and I, to New York City after I got back from my deployment to Iraq. And this kind of reminds me of September 11th. My first day of OCS was September the 9th, 2001. I witnessed that day from being locked down in school. We didn't have any access to media. We knew it was big. We knew it was really big. We knew that we were going to war, but we didn't understand how much it would change our lives at that point. But I remember standing there at ground zero, just in awe, like, holy cow. I never thought about going to the World Trade Center. I'd never been there before. But what happened there drastically changed my life. It changed her life for so many years. So I'm very happy to have Michaela here. Okay, so after I left the infantry school, I was assigned to the 101st Airborne Division, like Tripp talked about. We took part in the initial invasion of Iraq. We were there for a year. I describe it as the most wonderful, horrible thing I've ever seen in my life. Wasn't ready for some of what I saw there. Anybody still eating? Okay. We're talking about people on fire, children with their limbs blown off from picking up cluster munitions that didn't go off, dogs eating human beings, those kinds of things. Things you don't train for. There's no training for that. And how to deal with those situations. The locals came to us. There's a lot of dead bodies around and said, can you please do something about this? Like, they're not mine. Like in training, I never picked up the enemy and moved them somewhere. Because they're not ours either. They're from out of town. We don't know these guys. We're out of body bags. So smart lieutenant strings some concertina wire around them to stop the dogs, right? The dogs get caught in the wire and more dogs come and eat those dogs. It's a catastrophe. But we did the best we could, and you live and you learn, right? So now in training, you can bet people are seeing crazy stuff like that when I'm in charge. So we ended up spending most of our time in Mosul, and I think the U.S. as a whole was largely unprepared for what we might face in Iraq. Some people in the government knew it, but nobody's listened to them. And I thought about getting out because I was a little disappointed in some of what I saw there. And then my mom, she was there consistent as ever, because I'm thinking about getting out. It'd be the worst mistake of your life. So when I got back from Iraq, I went back to the University of Georgia for a degree completion program where I finally got my bachelor's degree. And I took 5-year-old Michaela there, while her mom remained in medical school in Tennessee where we just left. So it was just her and I for that year. It was the most wonderful year of my life. I also had a 4.0 GPA. It's odd what a little bit of discipline and a solid income will do for you. So after graduating UGA, I decided I would get a Special Forces Qualification course, or the Q course as we refer to it, to become a Special Forces officer. So I'm going to drop back here and just tell you a little bit about Special Forces, and then I'll give you some of my experience. So first, I've got to acknowledge we're part of a larger team of people. Army Special Operations Forces, which encompasses psychological operations, civil affairs, the 75th Rangers, and the the Army Special Operations Aviators who fly our special helicopters. We're also part of a larger Special Operations Command or SOCOM team that includes like Naval Special Warfare or the Air Force Special Operations Command or the Marine Forces Special Operations Command. So we're part of a big team, but today I'm going to talk specifically about Special Forces or Green Berets. Special Forces was created in 1952, traces lineage to the 1st Special Service Force and the Office of Strategic Services and some other World War II Special Operations organizations. Primary mission of Army Special Forces is to train and lead unconventional warfare forces or clandestine guerrilla force networks in occupied nations. The other core missions are foreign internal defense, which is the opposite of that. I'm working with a friendly government and trying to stop someone from doing exactly that. Direct action, which you're talking raids, ambushes. Counterterrorism and special reconnaissance, think long-range movements behind enemy lines to get your eyes on something special that we want to target. We emphasize language, cultural, and training skills in working with foreign troops. Our recruits are required to learn a foreign language as part of the training pipeline, and you must have a knowledge of political, economic, and cultural complexities of the regions in which we're deployed. We're raiding 5 active duty groups. You've got the 1st group that's out in Washington. They're responsible for Indo-PACOM theater. You have 3rd group at Fort Liberty, North Carolina, or what used to be Fort Bragg, aligned to Africa. You have 5th group, which is out at Fort Campbell in Kentucky. They're aligned to the Middle East and the Central Asian states. And then you have 7th group, which is at Eglin Air Force Base. They're aligned to South Africa or South America. And then you have 10th group at Fort Carson, which is aligned to Europe. There are also 2 National Guard groups that are out there, 19th in Utah and 20th in Birmingham, Alabama. Each active group has 4 Special Forces battalions and 1 support battalion. There are 2 Special Forces battalions that are forward. One is in 1st group, it's 1st Battalion, 1st group. It's out in Tori Station in Okinawa, Japan. And then the one that I was at, 1st Battalion, 10th Special Forces Group in Panzergezerne in Stuttgart, Germany. Each of those battalions has roughly 500 people in it, and they're organized into 3 Special Forces companies and 2 support companies. Inside those Special Forces companies, you have 6 Special Forces Operational Detachment Alphas, or ODAs as we refer to them, and those have 12 people on them, as you see depicted here. So you have the detachment commander, who is the captain. You have the assistant detachment commander, who is the warrant officer. You have the operations sergeant or team sergeant, typically a master sergeant. Then you have an intelligence sergeant, who is typically a sergeant 1st class. And you have 2 of each of weapons sergeant, engineering sergeants, medical sergeants, and communications sergeants, who are normally staff sergeants and sergeant 1st class, and 1 is junior and 1 is a senior. So how do you get to an ODA? The Q course frequently changes in its order and linked, but I'm going to give you the order in which I went to them and how it went for me. So first, there's Special Forces Assessment and Selection. This is a 24-day assessment that focuses heavily on land navigation, teamwork, decision-making, especially endurance. I went to this at 33 years old. I felt every bit of it. There were days when I just hurt and I wanted to quit. But every morning I woke up and found a new reason to stay. Sometimes it was because of somebody I talked to, or sometimes it was because of somebody that I thought about that would be disappointed in me. After selection, you move on to 7 weeks of tactical skills training, or as we knew it, as small unit tactics. This focuses mostly on planning, patrolling, raids, and ambushes. These are long movements with extremely heavy loads. I can remember one of my buddies, I'm still good friends with him today. He weighed about 130 pounds soaking wet, and I remember walking all night with him wearing like 115, 120 pounds, and just looking at him in awe, like, how in the world is he doing this? He was mostly fueled by rage and cigarettes and caffeine, drank a lot of Red Bull, but he was amazing. It's especially hard when members of the cadre were walking around throwing artillery simulators at you, making you run with those loads and making you carry the wounded in their gear. So sometimes you're talking up to 300 pounds for at least 100 or 1,000 meters. After that, we attend survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. This training teaches you to survive off the land, evade enemy forces in hostile territory, how to resist the enemy if captured, and finally, how to escape enemy capture and return to friendly forces with honor. You're put in some situations where your darkest fears arise to help you better understand them and how to deal with them when they do come up in a bad situation. You have to stay sharp, focus on your survival and those around you. You name it. Physical and mental abuse, starvation, claustrophobia, sleep deprivation, cold water treatment, isolation, betrayal, urinating on yourself, etc. Everything's on the menu there, literally. We ate worms, we ate snakes, and even roadkill. This is where we were taught to go ugly early and just open up and send it. It was late February after a pretty brutal winter. There was nothing in the ground except wild onions. And if you've never had a meal of wild onions, you haven't lived. Yeah. But we did the best we could, and we one day we found a large chicken that had fallen off a truck in the highway. It's fairly fresh. I've never seen a guy so happy than the guy who ran into camp to grab it and bring it to us. That thing fed 15 people that night. As a general rule on roadkill, you grab it by the back legs, shake it as hard as you can. Whatever stays in your hand is pretty good. So next, students move on to military occupation and specialty training. The weapons guys get particularly destroyed physically while they learn about mortars, weapons, or machine guns, foreign weapons. Engineers work on sabotage, explosives, construction. Medics spend a year in austere medicine and communications. Folks learn antenna theory, Morse code, and how to use a whole host of radios. The officers learn planning. Only 50% of my class graduated. Your judgment and military professionalism are always on trial, and it was tough. There are multiple training exercises that were some of the most realistic thing I've ever experienced. Imagine flying into DC, being pulled into secondary by TSA and read the riot act for the things that are in your bag, or being pulled from your car, put face down in the street by the local police while your fellow citizens on look who happen to be part of the exercise. Following that, language training. My language was Arabic. The final exercise is called Robin Sage. It's an unconventional warfare exercise where you're in a fictitious country called Pineland, and it's set on private land in middle North Carolina. It's been occupied, and you're assisting the locals' resistance in liberating their country. It lasts about a month and gives you all the skills that you need to be expecting in an environment of unconventional warfare. Many locals and retired Green Berets live in that area and participate as role players in this, and they take their role very seriously. At the end of that training, we went to work to church with the locals, and I met the local mayor there. And I was like, "Man, nice to meet you. I think we killed you on your front porch a few nights ago." Sorry about that. And I'm going to have to speed up because we're going to run out of time for sure. So after graduation, I was assigned to Special Forces Operational Detachment Alpha 3316. I'm going to tell a quick story, and then I'm going to get back on track. When I got there, my third day, we were getting ready to do some training, and we're in Virginia, and nonsense is going on. I've been there 3 days. I'm the new guy. They've made me drive to this training. I've got my weapons guy, my medic, and my engineer in the back seat drinking beer, and they start to fight, and I pull over, and we go into a rest stop. I walk inside. I see all these people with wires in their ear, and I'm like, God, who is in here? And I look over in the chip aisle, and there's Jimmy Carter. So I say to the medic, like, man, Jimmy Carter's out there. Shouldn't have said that. So he makes a beeline over there. Holy expletive. It's Jimmy Carter. He puts his hand out, shakes his hand. He goes, something horrible. Spill beer on me. And the other guy steps up and he goes, hi, I'm Ben. My butt's wet. And he shakes Jimmy Carter's hand. My God. I knew I'd be relieved at that point. Good group of guys, but sometimes we can be a handful. Definitely didn't say hi to Jimmy Carter and just kind of moved on out and figured out what I was going to do to make my team better. All right, so back on track. I usually tell that to captains as here's the worst case you could face on the early days. Later that year, we deployed to Pakistan, a series of missions there. We were there while Pervez Musharraf stepped down and during the embassy bombing there that killed 54 people. Luckily, we did not send anyone to the Marriott in Islamabad that weekend. We had been for a while, and for some reason we didn't that weekend. So very fortunate. A year later, we went to Afghanistan, deployed on a mission referred to as village stability operations. This is when we move into villages and try to raise a militia and kind of inoculate the local populace to the attacks that they're facing there. What a wild mission that was. We were told to go native until it hurts and gain the trust of these locals and stand them up against the Taliban. We probably walked about 10 miles a day to everybody's door, worked with as many people as we could, and at night we were getting hit with mortars, recoilless rifle, and small arms fire. Probably one of the most stressful and rewarding times I've ever had. We lived in a house with no running water, no electricity. I used to go on the radio and do Quranic recitations, and a lot of people there began to refer to me as Mullah Mike. Eventually, we received and advised the first Afghan Special Forces ODA, and they were able to connect with locals in a way that we weren't. The strategy had a potential to win in Afghanistan, but it was too little too late. There's actually a book about this called Game Changers by a buddy of mine and retired Green Beret, Scott Mann, if you get a chance or want to look into it. Yeah, so I'll move on from that. I think Tripp talked about the years in Jordan and Yemen. These are also the years that I met my wife Amira of 15 years. So wonderful time there. I'm going to jump forward to see how much time we have. Yeah, we may miss a little bit of questions. In July 2020, as you mentioned, I became a battalion commander in Germany in the most historic unit in all special forces. This was the first battalion that we had. Been there since 1952, had an unbelievable culture and history. I could talk for hours about this. It was an incredible time. I wouldn't trade for anything. This assignment took me to the UK, France, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, Ukraine, and the other Georgia to work with partners there. Great people, great food, as had been the case in Afghanistan and Iraq. And I recommend you check out Georgian food sometimes if you can. I was in Kiev in the final weeks before the Russian invasion. We were working closely with our Ukrainian partners. We were also working closely with the embassy. We were planning to leave the embassy open and us stay there with them as the Russians washed over. But ultimately, in the end, someone made the decision not to go. Just picture me on the side of the road in that blue jacket on a Sunday in rural Ukraine with a flat tire and no spare, trying to leave on the 17-hour drive from Kiev to Rzeszów, Poland. It's fun times. Very disappointed and frustrated to leave our friends behind there, but I couldn't be prouder of them and what they've accomplished in the last 2+ years, standing up against quite a giant that's trying to get them. I want to stop briefly and talk about the people that I've met there. I want to highlight one particular guy, or actually I want to talk about this a little bit. So when you imagine in your mind going to war, or you find yourself hunkered down in the Kuwaiti desert while Scud missiles fly over your head, and you're waiting to bust a berm and run into Iraq, you might think about the people and go, they're nothing like me and they just want to kill me. I don't like any of them. Couldn't be more wrong. This is the wonderful part. Been in some of the worst nations, rugged, violent, terrible, impoverished nations on earth. Every one of them I found amazing human beings. Many of them are just stuck there and they either feel helpless or they are helpless. And they can't do anything to change their fate. I learned how lucky I am to be an American, like to hit the cosmic lottery, to be born in America and be here. We enjoy so much that we take for granted. So much peace and so much prosperity that others dream about. I spent a lot of time with a lot of people learning about their culture and especially sitting down to eat with them. I'm going to skip some of these people in the sake of time, but I want to talk about that last guy on the right. So that guy was an Afghan commando who worked with us in the valley during the village stability operations. One night he took a PKM round through his mouth and blew the teeth out the front of his mouth. I thought he was going to die. And I remember putting him on that medevac and him saying, Mike, please don't let an Afghan work with me because they're just going to pull the rest of my teeth out. And then I didn't see him again. And then I'm sitting in Germany and I get a call from a guy who says, hey, I've got an ABC reporter calling me and he's looking for Mullah Mike. He's got a guy he's talking to who's stuck outside of Kabul who can't get out. And he thinks Mullah Mike can help him. And I'm like, God, man, this guy is looking for a captain that he met 11 years ago in the middle of nowhere. He must be desperate. They gave me his number and I talked to Nizam every night on that WhatsApp as the final days began to go. And it was difficult because I felt helpless and I felt like I was talking to a dead man. They had his number, they're calling him, they're threatening his family. And ultimately we worked with a network of people that developed, of people across the government, other Afghan commandos. And it's in another book that actually Scott Mann wrote called Operation Pineapple Express. But this is a chat room that kind of sprang up during this time. And first it got him out, and then it got thousands more out of Afghans who had helped Americans and had done a great service for this nation. We eventually made the decision to move him to the airport. And when he got there, he was stuck outside for about 12 to 15 hours with his family. People were pushing, 2 people were trampled to death by him, and he just couldn't get in. I called generals, retired generals, former ambassadors, people from the State Department, CIA officers. I even called the Brits. Nobody could get him in. And then a Marine Corps Lance Corporal picked up the phone from a random unit number I'd been given. And she sent that picture of him standing at the gate that I sent her to the gate guards, and they pulled him inside. She will never know what she did that day. He lives in America now. So I'll move on. Now quickly talk about children because I got to speed up. Hey, everywhere I've gone, children are drawn to soldiers. They're amazing. We're like action figures who've come to life for them, and they all want to hang out with you, and they look up to you. One of the things they were really into in Afghanistan was pens because all the schools are closed, and they want to learn, and they want to write, and they want to do all these things. I think my mom sent me 5,000, maybe 10,000 pins. And I just got like, just send more pins, send more pins. I can remember we were walking out on patrol and General Scott Miller was there, who eventually became the CENTCOM commander. I gave him a giant handful of pins. He goes, what's this for? I'm like, sir, this will make you a rock star when we get out there. Trust me. Everywhere we went, they want to be around you. They look up to you. And when I look at them, I mean, despite the situation they live in or the lack of opportunity, they represent the hopes and dreams of their family, just like our children do. Most of these people are dirt farmers who have these kids, but they all dream of sending them to Kandahar or Kabul to get an education and have a better life. Most of these kids are in their middle 20s right now. Imagine if we'd gotten it right for them. So what am I doing now? After battalion command trip said I moved to back home here. I'm in the Force Modernization Center. We're responsible for designing and delivering organizations and material capabilities for future warfare. We're working with robotics, autonomous systems, all kinds of new tech, artificial intelligence, like things that warfighters face now are things I never imagined when I was a captain. It's exciting, but just in a different way. It's more staffy. It's more like I'm good at emails now. And last, while I do still have just a minute here, I want to kind of close with a thought because I get this question a lot. Like, what do I think about what's happening in America right now? And I may get a little bothered by some of this, but I want to say this. Like, I've been in the middle of 5 civil wars and multiple other conflicts. I know what civil war looks like, and I have no doubt about what it starts like. It begins with these small little fractures. You don't even see them at first. And then they grow over time, and both sides find themselves so far apart that their egos and their pride won't let them get back together. They won't talk. They won't compromise. They won't admit they're human and love each other. And then they start seeing each other as enemies, and ultimately you get violence, right? No matter who wins, everybody loses. Those kids I just showed you, they definitely lose. And there's no way around that. Being in Germany during COVID in January 6th of 2001, I got an outside look at my country. As a lifelong servant of my country, it scared the crap out of me. Because I recognized what I saw, and I remember thinking, man, America has lost its mind. Unreal what I watched on TV. How could the people that were so united on September the 12th, 2001 be this far apart right now? And as I moved back home in 2022, it became really real for me because I saw it up close. And it was undeniable. Many people see each other in different ways. They don't look at each other as Americans anymore. We've completely abandoned our principles of love thy neighbor. And if you don't believe that Russia and China are getting a huge kick out of this and even poking at it and fomenting it with information operations, social media outreach, they're speeding up the process. If we don't fix this, I think we're in trouble. Our children will suffer. So what can we do about it? I would urge you to seek out those who are different than you. Acknowledge the differences, listen to them, understand why they feel different than you. You have to be open to the fact that you could be wrong about everything, or they could be wrong. And that's okay too. You can disagree and it's fine. It's hard for people to do this. It's essential though to heal the small fractures that I see in our nation. I promise you won't regret if you do it. If you have nothing in common with someone, start with a meal. I've been around the world and never seen anybody who doesn't like to eat. Everybody likes to eat. This has been the first piece of common ground for me in so many situations where I had to build a relationship with someone who was nothing like me, didn't like me, didn't want anything to do with me or my American dream that I was bringing them. But that's how I got there. You got to meet people where they are. So I pray that you do that. And I thank you for your time. And I look forward to any questions if we have time.
Sandy Lee.
Which one? The one about village stability or the one about Nizam? The book Game Changers is about village stability operations in Afghanistan itself. And then the Operation Pineapple Express is about that network of people who were getting Afghans out. And I think both are on Amazon.
Okay. Dr. Killebrew.
Your comment about having been in the middle of 5 civil wars, and comments about the status of our country today. The question is, how do you teach uncompromising people the art of compromise? Is there any secret to that?
I think you have to get to know people and accept them as humans. Like you have to spend time together. Being familiar with people and seeing them as they are, like you aren't an evil person. You may not think like me. You may not be you may not dress like me. You may not be my religion, my color, my creed, any of that. But we are all humans. Like make no doubt about that. And you've got to make that connection with that human. And sometimes you got to forget about all the things you have in the back of your head, your principles, your beliefs, all of these things. Those are yours. They're not someone else's. You can't force anyone else to use those. I think that's key, like having an open mind. It's hard because you got to get past all that. Like, I mean, I'm 51 years old. You think I don't have some things in my head that are really hard to get rid of that I've been taught all my life? But you got to do it because that's just my thoughts.
More question?
Yeah.
So what's next? When are you dropping your packet and your paperwork?
For retirement?
Sure.
I do actually. So I was selected for command at Fort Jackson as a garrison commander, which would require, thank you. It would require a move to the Army War College in Pennsylvania, followed by a move to Fort Jackson, followed by a move back to Fort Bragg to retire. So I turned that down. And I'm going to stay where I am in North Carolina and keep that little girl in the 4th grade that she loves so much. And I'm going to retire in 3 years-ish. Yeah. It'll be about 31, 32 years in the Army when I retire. And then I'm going to need an organization like this to be a part of.
Listen, I don't know if there's a question, everybody's back of their mind. Has there ever been a time when you can take it? That time was 1987 and be free. Everything 1987 post, we're good. Let bygones be bygones. Right.
Colonel, thank you, like really for your service, but thank you today for sharing your info. It's widespread. We should listen to people like you, and we should open our perspective and listen to, appreciate, respect all of them.
Thank you, Rex. Anything else?
That's an important question. Not to take away from anything you said, but it's all awesome. Did your mother teach you how to dance?
She was too busy working. She did not teach me how to dance.
I don't believe it.
But it's in me. Like it came from me. So it's in me.
What are you looking forward to in civilian? What do you think you're pursuing?
I honestly don't know. I don't care about money, and that's been a struggle sometimes. Because when I came in the Army, I made $400 every 2 weeks as a PFC. So I feel rich now. Like that was real hard times. So I'm not motivated by money, but I am motivated by helping people. Honestly, if I could, I would start an organization that paid people more than they're worth and did dynamite work like that. That's what I'd really do. I don't care how much I make. I just want to see a group of people come together and do something they love and be really good at it.
Anything else? All right, big thanks, Mike. So obviously, I'm really proud. I want to thank him for 27 years of sacrifice, not just sacrifice on behalf of our country, but the sacrifice that he's made with his family. So thank you to Michaela and Lena as well. So Michael, today on your behalf, we'll be making a donation to Polio Plus, which is Rotary's effort to eradicate polio worldwide. We do have some good programs coming up. I wanted to let you all know Patrick Bowie on June 5th is going to be our speaker. He's going to talk about the state of the city. We won't have a meeting on June 12th because of the annual banquet. June 19th, really interesting program. Thank you, Randy. We're going to have Representative Calvin Smyrie, a longtime representative, come talk about his interesting career. And then on June 26th, we're going to have Dr. Nathan Call, who's with the Marcus Autism Institute in Atlanta, come talk. So, appreciate you all taking time to be here. We're adjourned. Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
Every now and then you have to take your permission. Back it up. Pretty got everything. The funny thing is, I've always thought, that very last bit, it's like, the son and the family, they're